So please welcome Matt and Robert, or Reggie, up to the stand, please.
The intention for today is to go a little bit more in depth into cybersecurity framework, how one might implement or use it, and get you started thinking about that process if you haven't gone there already. So pay attention to this part because there's going to be a quiz on this. 3 components of framework. Got them? Core, profile, and implementation tiers. Core being the taxonomy, right? That's the geeky word that I examined with you all yesterday. The taxonomy of cybersecurity outcomes most specifically. Then there is the profile, which is the customization of the core for you, whether you as a sector, subsector, segment is another word we've heard used, or an individual organization. And then there's the implementation tiers themselves. I won't spend too much time on implementation tiers today because actually Mr. Tim Casey from Intel is going to hit the stage here in a little bit, and he's going to explain some really neat customizations that Intel did with implementation tiers. But just for review, 1 to 4 scale, partial to adaptive, and in the NIST framework version 1.0 document, there are 3 properties that span that 1 to 4 scale. There's risk management process. How well are you doing your cybersecurity risk management as a centralized? I think of that visually as a vertical in your organization. Then there's integrated risk management program. That's kind of the horizontal integration of cybersecurity into other activities and larger risk decisions in your org. And then there's external participation. That's the flow of information in and out of your organization to help inform yourself and others of cybersecurity and threats and vulnerabilities and other relevant pieces of information that way. So just a little bit of a foreshadow. So what you'll find is, and what I really wanted to express from NIST perspective is that Intel, they took these properties and they changed it up a little bit. They changed some of the vocabulary, and they retained a lot of the spirit of these implementation tier properties, and ultimately, like I say, expanded that vocabulary a bit and expanded the concepts a little bit to better suit themselves. I don't know how well read you are on this stuff, but 95% of NIST publications are meant to be adapted in that way. Adapt it in a way that is most valuable for your business. Nobody at NIST is going to feel bad that you changed something we wrote down on in a document somewhere. We want you to adapt it in a way that it makes it most valuable for you. And Intel is going to explore that later. So later on today, like this morning, you will find out a little bit more on the Intel implementation tiers, but I'll stop there and leave the rest for Tim. The core outlined here, the 5 functions, the 22 categories, I wanted to explore it a little bit more in depth today and show you what the subcategories look like if you haven't had a chance to take a peek. Remember yesterday I was emphasizing the importance of that business environment category, and my recommendation that you start there as a point of reflection. Here's what the subcategories for that look like. The organization's role in the supply chain is identified and communicated. The organization's place in the critical infrastructure and its industry sector is identified and communicated. And then priorities for organizational mission, objectives, and activities are established and communicated. Those are the first 3. So ID.BE-1, -2, and -3. Those are 3 subcategories out of the business environment category. So you get a feel for the level of abstraction of a cybersecurity framework subcategory. So a couple things to highlight there. We purposely architect based on feedback from the stakeholder group. We purposely kept it at that level of abstraction because the feedback was, and in fact NIST professional, all of the cybersecurity professionals there kind of knew, there's a lot of great controls frameworks. We didn't want to go down to that level of abstraction. There's enough great constructs in that space, so we purposely kept the subcategories at that sort of level. What you will find is a connection in the appendix, I believe it's Appendix A of Framework Table 2. What you'll find is a connection between the core itself, those functions, categories, and subcategories. Have I said that 5 times yet, by the way? I think probably you all getting it. And informative references. That's where we listed things like controls frameworks. You'll see COBIT, you'll see NIST Special Publication 853 controls. You'll see ISO 27001 and the ISA 62443. These are meant to be illustrative only. These are not exhaustive mappings, but they're meant to show that here's where framework stops and these other great things begin. The original architecture of framework was one, and still to this day is one, where framework is meant to augment what you're doing. It's not meant to be the sole construct by which you manage your cybersecurity. And so what we're trying to show is a way to connect these dots. Sometimes folks ask if it's the expectation that a party is using one or all of the ones informative references are specifically listed. The answer is no. If there's something that you're using to manage your operation, the point here, the recommendation here is that you map it into the subcats to get the translative value of framework, as well as the value that you're already getting from that other construct, whatever it was that you were using. So this hopefully enumerates why business environment is a strong recommendation on a first start. It's one of those things that's easy to say, surely I've done that, and when you go and slow it down and actually read the words of the subcat and actually pick out the distinct phrases, it's a great litmus test. So it's just a good time to take a look in using the framework construct. And then the governance and risk management strategy are the same sort of point of reflection for you as you get prepared to operate and maintain your security operation according to the framework core. So ways to think about a profile. It's a customization, yes, I've said that, but aligning cybersecurity requirements with your security operation is another way to think of it, as a basis for expressing target state and a basis for assessment. That's another way of thinking of a profile. I have some specific thoughts on profiles. When we looked at this diagram yesterday, the business process level folk interacting with the implementation operation level folk using a profile. This is for everybody to stay on the same page with regard to priorities. Priorities being a key feature of a framework profile. That's really a big part of the customization of a profile. Such that the business process level we're expressing these subcategories are more important than those. It's important to make that distinction, and then ultimately that can cascade, in the spirit of the informative references, that can cascade at the implementation level to some sort of way that you manage the security operation, whether it's a controls framework, controls catalog, or something different. So now to the meat of it. Building a profile. This is just one way to think of building a profile. Once again, this is use framework in a way that it adds the most value for you. This is just one way of thinking of it. But the way I think of it is, you're mapping in the mission objectives and priorities into the subcategories. You're mapping in your cybersecurity requirements to the subcategories, and then you're mapping in the way that you operate your security operation in. This unlocks, from my perspective, this unlocks the maximum translative value of cybersecurity framework. Mission or business objectives we talk through, cybersecurity requirements, legislation, regulation, internal, external policy, best practices. This is the type of stuff that I mean when I say cybersecurity requirements. They can come from all sorts of different places, and I'm sure others that I didn't list. And then your operating methodologies. This can be technical guidance. This is also where things like security controls live. When you're done, conceptually, you'll have something that looks kind of sort of like this, trying to be overly simplified for the slideware. So you can see where the mission priorities gets transposed into the cyber priorities there associated with number one. The cybersecurity requirements get mapped in associated with number two, and then your operating methodologies. Part of the thing I wanted to highlight here is the requirements reconciliation drill in and of itself has tremendous value if you've never embarked on something like that before. We see here that requirements B and C, they might map into a subcategory too, and they map in just fine. They're complementary. We're showing alignment. But requirements D and E, they're highlighted in red to highlight. You might also find that some things conflict when you map them in. And that's a part of the value. What are we going to do about that conflict? We going to accept it? Is there a workaround? Are we going to, okay, regulation or internal policy conflict? Do we consider changing the internal policy? Right? It spurs on that discussion, and that's an important part of the process of creating a profile. When you organize yourself this way, we're getting closer and closer and closer to this elusive making compliance a byproduct of just running a good, clean security shop, right? We're showing the connected path between operating methodologies like a security control and the cybersecurity requirements that we're beholden to. So whether it's an internal audit, external audit, hopefully demonstrating that becomes a little bit easier, a little bit less hustle. So there's an efficiency for you there as an operation if you're managing the security shop according to the subcategories and ultimately can translate that back to the cybersecurity requirements as those audits come. You may find that your external auditors, for instance, regulators, you may find that those regulators are increasingly educated and able to use the taxonomy that is cybersecurity framework. That's certainly happening in places. We see in the financial services sector, organizations like OCC and the FFIEC thereof, publishing a cyber assessment tool, aligning that with cybersecurity framework. We may see that language start to cascade in. I want you all to know also on that note, when we go talk to regulators, we stress a couple things to them. We stress that framework is most powerful as a voluntary construct. We want to keep it that way. People do funny things when things become mandatory. So we think it's most healthy to keep framework in the voluntary space. And it's a good thing. We are also stressing it's a good thing to integrate the vocabulary of cybersecurity framework in to the way that you do business. Framework cannot create new cybersecurity requirements or regulation. So we're also stressing those sort of points when we're making the rounds. And we do interact with quite a few regulators. I mentioned earlier that profiles can be the basis for your as-is and to-be, and here's a depiction of that, once again, uber simplified for the sake of conversation. But when you have your mission priorities transposed into cybersecurity priorities, and when you've done a gap analysis, then you're all set up to line up your resource and budgetary decisions to get from as is to be. Maybe you can perform some things in a given fiscal year, maybe some things have to be deferred, maybe some things have to be performed over multiple fiscal years, but it organizes you to make those decisions. I was talking with a CISO for a household name in banking, wish to remain anonymous, but and he reports to the CIO in their organization. And he was saying that this is exactly how they are using framework, and it's really streamlined his dialogue with his CIO as far as how much money do you need to spend, where are you going to spend the money. I'm thinking of the $1, $2, $3 sign column from Carrie's chart yesterday. You know, you add that to this, and all of a sudden you have a compelling tool to explain where the money's being spent this year and where you tend to spend it next year. And this CISO also related a story that sometimes when he spends a little less and when the CIO comes up with a few extra dollars, the CIO is likely, and in fact has, come back to him and said, I've got a few extra dollars. What's next on your list? And it's very easy to get to that answer, and it's transparent. You can expose that to, in that case, the CIO, and justify the expense. And all of that gets communicated as well. In summary, that gets communicated at the C-level and executive level of that particular organization. So people are actually using Framework this way and having some successes. Profiles, one way to think of profiles is you can think of it as aligned with a policy regime, a given policy regime that you're beholden to, right? So we have these systems that are aligned with one policy regime, and these that are aligned with another, and maybe we have some that overlap. Okay, we'll take the profiles, we're going to combine them in some sort of way for that. That's a way to think about profiles. Another way to think about profiles, and this kind of gets more in the neck of the woods of disaster recovery, business continuity disaster recovery, is you can think of profiles as also aligning with the state of your operation, right? I'm in normal operation, I'm in respond mode, I'm in recover mode. And your priorities might shift a little bit in those moments. Taking your basal profile that perhaps is lined up with the policy regime and then saying, but if I'm in a response circumstance, here's the ways I'm going to shift some of my prioritization because it represents a shift in resourcing or a shift in time, etc. Here's the ways that I'm going to shift. And in fact, this meatball diagram for Once Upon a Time was meant to express that. Here may be some categories that might gain additional focus during those moments. We have, of course, respond and recover subcategories gaining additional focus in those moments, but we might also have select pieces of identify, protect, and detect getting increasing focus in those moments. Might even be aligned with the threat at hand, right? The protective measures we take, and so which box gets checked might change a little bit with your circumstance. So there's a piece of that you could prepare in advance in the spirit of having the decision support all ready for the moments when you're in respond and recover mode. And then there are things that might be more risk-informed per the moment. But the point is that a profile, you can think of it as a transient tool as well. So some common patterns of use, integrating the vocabulary of Framework into what the cybersecurity operation is doing, integrating into the leadership team is a real common first step. Even in federal circles, we see that right now. We see OMB and agency level folk using the 5 functions and trying to figure out how to use them and rolling up status reporting to those sorts of things. All voluntary, by the way. The federal agencies already have the risk management framework and the FSMA suite of guidance, which is a mandatory way to manage their operations, but they're also voluntarily using the 5 functions of Framework to organize themselves. So that's a real common pattern of use. Another pattern is to determine your optimal risk management, the way you should be functioning, and which parts of your org should be a 4 versus a 2 versus a 3. Figuring that out, then trying to measure yourself in some way against that and figuring out where you're at. So you got the basis for the gap analysis and how are we going to change our behavior around cybersecurity risk management. I mentioned reflecting on the business environment, governance, risk management categories. Another recommendation of ours, but we do see people gravitating there as a first step. And then developing a profile, customizing the core for you. A note on the vision of NIST vision of the ecosystem. We see it played out, actually really interesting, and we see a lot of this played out in financial services and telecom, where the notion is that you're not necessarily going to NIST's version 1.0 document as your sole source document when you're creating a profile. You're going to artifacts that have been created by the industry. We have the CISRIC Working Group 4 document and the segment by segment profiles. These subcategories important, these subcategories less important. We have that sort of information out there, so there's some priorities. There's also valuable things that are being published in various sectors. Health and Human Services crosswalk of HIPAA security rule to cybersecurity framework subcategories. That's a really important crosswalk. There's no priorities expressed, but it's important that a party that is authoritative with regard to HIPAA security rule has chimed in and said this is how that maps to the subcategories of framework. The vision here is when you create your own profile, you might take any number of artifacts like that, gather them together, add your own set of business-specific priorities to it. So you might take the sector or segment priorities and you might change that a bit to suit you, and then you'll be up and running. So hopefully the fodder for 80% profile of the profile is done for you. Hopefully that fodder exists in your ecosystem. Like I say, in telecom, not only does that CISRIC document exist, but we're starting to see that trickle down into the various segments and some work products being created and some discussions being spurred on. And there's a similar sort of thing in financial services going on right now too. So with that, I think I've probably filled your heads with profiles, and you're swimming in it. So I'm going to transition to a colleague of mine, Reggie McKinney from DHS, who's going to talk about the voluntary program.
All right, thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Reggie McKinney. I am the program manager for the voluntary programs at DHS. And so I want to kind of lay sort of like a little bit of the landscape of the organization that I'm currently in right now. So I'm in the component of the cybersecurity and communications, and I know a lot of you already collaborate with a lot of our components within the Office of Cybersecurity and Communications. There's the NCIC, the National Cybersecurity Communications and Integration Center, which houses our U.S. CERT, which houses also the ICS CERT. And my office is, I'm from the Stakeholder Engagement and Critical Infrastructure Resilience branch. Every now and again I have to look all these acronyms. I really get confused at these acronyms sometimes. So forgive me if I have to look down, because I could say cyber and critical, at any point here. So, but anyway, within the seeker branch, if you don't want to kind of pronounce it out, within the seeker branch we have our voluntary programs. We also have a program that does the cyber resilience reviews, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and also our CSAs, our cyber security analysts that we have out in the field. So I'll talk about those a little bit later, but I know I always get the questions about, okay, so how do you relate to the NCIC and the US CERT and ICS CERT? So our organization is the external focusing component of CS&C, of cybersecurity and communications. All right, so I'm here today to talk about the voluntary programs and how we work and partner with NIST as they continue to build upon and refine the cybersecurity framework. So as you know, I mean, you've heard from various presentations that we also were under Executive Order 13636, the same one that charged NIST with developing the framework. It also charged DHS at the same time to develop a voluntary program to promote the use of the framework. And the components of the voluntary programs was to develop resources to work with our stakeholder and industry partners in this shared program. And we know that the NIST framework is a voluntary. It's voluntary. Our program as well. is voluntary. And so we have a lot of resources that we have to offer our critical infrastructure owners and operators. If there's one thing I would like for you to to take away today is our website, and I'll kind of talk about that throughout the presentation here. But on our website, we have a lot of resources that we have created along with our stakeholders and our partners. These free resources that are available for your use. So, and our primary goal here is to help our stakeholders work through the implementation of the framework, and we link them to various public and private sector type resources as well to accomplish this. So, what is the Critical Infrastructure Cyber Community, or C3, or C cubed, or just simply voluntary programs? So, the voluntary program, what it does, it connects critical infrastructure owners and operators to tools and resources to help them understand and use the cybersecurity framework. Through the voluntary program, you can gather resources and lessons learned, and we also attempt to increase the community of interest around the cyber risk. So the vision of the community, which is us, all of us, is to offer a place for industry, state and local governments, federal government partners, and other stakeholders, a place to convene and to discuss the evolving cyber risk management. And so, since, again, NIST, the cybersecurity framework, I know they don't like using the NIST cybersecurity framework, but we'll say, well, I'll keep trying to say the cybersecurity framework, Matt, so I'll keep pushing that. Since it's not a mandated piece of legislation, the voluntary program looks to engage with as many people as possible, especially our critical infrastructure owners and operators, to provide tools and resources to increase the understanding and overall use of the cybersecurity framework. And so venues like these are extremely valuable to us to participate in as we continue to refine our approach to our stakeholder needs. So I want to talk a little bit about our program accomplishments. So the program has been sort of like moving forward since November of 2013. We have undertaken a variety of activities and launched a number of products to encourage the framework use. So the number one way that we interact with our stakeholders is via our website. And again, our website includes downloadable products that we continue to create for our stakeholders. And I'll talk about our website a little bit more in depth later later in the discussion of the resources that we have. So we also work with a cross-sector team, engaging with all of our 16 critical infrastructures to provide them voluntary program briefings as well as they become familiar with our program offerings. Since 2013, we have conducted over 17 national webinars, over 310 industry briefings, again, to all of our 16 critical infrastructures. And this year, our webinars focus on the logical grouping of critical infrastructure sectors. So our next one is going to be held tomorrow, as a matter of fact. And we'll focus on the lifeline sector. So we'll have representatives from water, transportation, energy, and communications. And Mr. Robert Mayer, who spoke yesterday, he will be one of the panelists on the webinars. And so you can find out more information on that if you go to the CCube website. We'd love to have you, kind of dial in and participate or just listen. One of the great things about webinars is that you can continue to work at your desk while you listen to the webinars. So we want to keep that productivity up. So I'll give you that information a little bit later. We've also hosted a series of regional events, and we've had events in Boston and New Jersey and Houston, San Diego, and and what we like to do is sort of like venues like this, is to discuss how organizations have used and can continue to utilize the framework. We have, one of our main focuses, heading into 16 was, how can we help, the small and medium-sized businesses, the SMBs, and we understand the issues that the SMBs have when it comes to trying to sort of get their arms wrapped around with where to start within the framework. And through venues like this, when Carrie's team yesterday, the SDN team talked about how they were utilizing the framework. So we love to be in venues where our SMBs get up and talk to the rest of the the SMBs about how they're instituting the framework, some of the lessons learned that they have. So I do appreciate, again, coming to venues like this where we get an opportunity to get these lessons learned and get them out there to the community, to let these other ones know that, hey, it can be done. It won't be easy, but it can be done. And so we're here to, to help you and try to provide you with the resources. So we have a regional event coming up in June 1st in Indianapolis. It's with the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. And there are a few utility companies that are coming together, and it'll should be a setting just like this one. We'll have panel discussions. We have a representative from NIST, as always, will be there talking about the framework. Unfortunately, it won't be Matt, so they're sending somebody else this time. So I'll try to get through it without Matt in Indianapolis. So if you're in the area, we would certainly love for you to stop by and participate. I'll have more. I'll point you to our website. I'll give you the website at the end, where it tells you how to register, and it has all the other pertinent information. So we've established some goals for the program in 2016, and one of the goals is to harmonize cybersecurity risk management strategies, and so we'll continue to work with our SSAs and partners from all the 16 critical infrastructures to incorporate framework use language into the sector-specific plans. We'll continue to pursue development of framework implementation guidance for all 16 critical infrastructure sectors. We do have 8 implementation plans that have been approved. And we should have them up on our CCube website here pretty soon for you to be able to for your use to go out and look at the implementation plans for those 8 critical infrastructures. The second thing that we want to accomplish is we want to build relationships among our cybersecurity stakeholders. So that means coming to venues such as these and being able to talk to and collaborate with stakeholders such as yourself. We'll continue our webinar programs. We have those on a quarterly basis, and each installment again focusing on a cluster of critical infrastructures. We'll continue our regional event series. Again, I want to plug for the one June 1st in Indiana. And we've also launched a monthly newsletter. And so this newsletter will actually keeps our community informed of upcoming events and new resources that we have made available to you. And you can go to our website and you can sign up to receive those monthly newsletters. So I would highly encourage you to do so. And the third thing is third goal is create a national cybersecurity culture. And since I've been again at DHS since 2004, and and every year we've continued to build upon one program to the next, especially when it comes to working with our private sector and our critical infrastructure owners and operators through partnerships. And a lot of and most of the things that the programs that we create right now, especially for our stakeholders, is with partnership with our 16 critical infrastructures, because we know that we can't do it by ourselves and just hand you something and expect you to use it without you having a voice in it. That definitely doesn't go over well. And so in the C-Cubed program, we'll continue to create new tools for your use, including technical documents to help the owners and operators, as well as the SMB, and of course our state and local, tribal and territorial stakeholders to improve their cybersecurity framework. So I want to talk a little bit about our website. I would highly encourage you, if you take nothing away from what I'm saying today, please take away the URL for our website. And so it's a central location. So this is the first time we've actually been able to take all of the resources from the various components, the ICS CERT, US CERT, all the components that are under the cybersecurity and communications umbrella, to be able to post them, to make them available on one website. And so through our C-Cubed website, you can go, and I know you can't see it that well here, it's kind of wobbly here on the screen, but on the left-hand side, as you see, there are the various stakeholders listed, and you can click on that link for whichever sector or whatever group that you're with, and you can click on those, and it'll take you into sort of a page that talks about all the resources that we have available, like for academia, state and local. We have a SMB for small and medium-sized businesses. We have a section dedicated to them as well, with the various tools and resources to help them along as they continue to work through this cybersecurity framework. So a little bit about the resources. This is one of our main resources here is our Cyber Resilience Review, which is a no-cost voluntary non-technical assessment to evaluate an organization's operational resilience and cybersecurity practices. And you can go directly to the website. There are tools you can download where you can do the assessment yourself, or we have an evaluation team that will work with you, that will come out to your organization and will help you do the resilience review as well. So we also have cybersecurity advisors that we're currently filling out in the various regions. I think we have like 4 regions covered right now, and so these advisors will be here to to help you through your programs, or to help you connect with DHS on any type of issues that you may have. Again, I'm not sure if we have one out in this region. I know we had one scheduled to come, Chad Adams, but I'm not sure if this is his region or if he was going to cover this. Other programs, we have a cyber information sharing and collaboration program, which is again, it's a voluntary program, and allow you to, if you go out to our website, you can get more information on that. We have our Enhanced Cybersecurity Services program. It is this one is a classified program where organizations, or it's for the sharing of classified indicators. So it is a classified program. Again, we have more information. You can get more information on that one as well out on our website. And this is how to get involved. Please check out our website. We have lots of tools. We have lots of resources out there. Love for you to sign up for our monthly newsletters. We'd love for you to get involved and sign up for some of our webinars, or even maybe down the road to be able to have you sit on a panel on our webinars to discuss how you may be utilizing the framework. And so we'd like you to spread the word. And share your success stories with us, so we can share them with the rest of the community to make everybody better.